Okay, guys, if you're just coming into this right now, then we're going to get started here in about a minute. It usually takes me a little bit of time to get this thing up and going and let people start filtering in. So if you're watching this after the fact, just stick around for another minute or so until I get this all set up, and people will start trickling in also. Let's see here. If you're in the chat right now and you can hear me, let me know. Sorry guys, I'm terrible at getting these live chats going. So if you can hear me, just let me know in the chat. Kurt Robertson, can you hear me? He's giving me 2 thumbs up. You're good. Okay, great. All right, we'll just give it another 30 seconds or a minute here. Let people start filtering in. If you've never been to a live chat before, what to expect is I try to talk about the bikes that I most recently rode. So in this case, the 2 Fezzaris, the Delano Peak and the LaSalle Peak. I try to answer questions that were posted in those videos, below the videos in the descriptions. I'm also going to give you an update on what bikes I'm riding, what tires I like, because I get a ton of questions about tires. So we're going to talk about tires, what bikes I'm riding, future demo rides that I've got coming up, new videos I've got coming up in the pipeline here, and yeah, just hang out, answer your questions, and see how everyone's doing. Also, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about some of the products I'm using now as sponsors. They're not really big sponsors. You know, Coco Joy gives me free coconut water, so I like to plug them as much as I can. I don't make any money off this stuff. It's just I don't have to buy it anymore because they give it to me for free, which is pretty rad. I've been buying this for years. The hip pack that I use, we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then below each video that I have is a link to Competitive Cyclists. In fact, I'm wearing my Competitive Cyclist hat tonight. There's a link to Competitive Cyclists on all the gear that I use. The glasses, the helmet, the Wahoo computer, the tires I use, the jersey and the shorts that I use, the shoes and pedals that I use, just everything. And also some of the bikes that I demo. So for example, if Competitive Cyclist sells a bike that I'm demoing, like this Pivot Switchblade that I recently bought, for example, which, spoiler alert, if you haven't been following my Instagram, then you wouldn't know that I own a Pivot Switchblade now. So I have a hard time catching people up between Instagram and YouTube. I'm so much more active on Instagram in my Instagram stories. So if you want to be caught up and know what's going on in my world and what bikes I'm demoing, what bikes I own, and different things I'm changing up, follow me on Instagram at MTBYumYum. And I mostly just post in the stories, the little round icon that you can click on and see the stories. So those are the things we're going to be talking about a little bit today. But yeah, if you guys ever buy any clothes or jerseys or helmets or anything like that, and you're gonna buy online, you can use the links in the description below any one of my videos to go to Competitive Cyclists, and it's a huge help in terms of making this channel worthwhile. I don't have a Patreon. I don't get paid to do this. It takes a lot of time, as most of you guys probably realize. And so it's nice to have, they pay me little commissions when people end up clicking on those links and buying something. So it's really helpful, especially if someone buys a bike. It really makes this channel worth it for me. So not that it's just all about the money, but really it takes a lot of time. So with that said, I'm gonna grab a Coco Joy and then we're gonna get started here. Let's see. So I've been riding the Fezzaris for the last little bit, and I've had a million people ask me, they've posted on my Instagram or sent me emails or posted on YouTube and said, dude, Jason, like Fezzari's in your backyard, they're in Utah, how come you're not riding a Fezzari? Or how come you haven't demoed a Fezzari? But honestly, I just haven't connected with them. It hasn't happened, and the bikes that I have the most access to are the bike shops who reach out to me, like Salt Cycles has, and said, "Hey, we like what you're doing. When we get a new bike in that our brand that we carry, a brand that we carry, we want to get it to you so that you can review it and plug us and just tell people how great Salt Cycles is," which I'm more than happy to do. Another bike shop I can get access to is Go Ride. They have Giant, Santa Cruz, and then Yeti and Pivot, and then obviously Salt Cycles has Yeti, Pivot, Ibis, Transition in Canada, although they don't carry a lot of Transition. Also, if you guys have never been on a live chat before, once the Coco Joy's gone, that's kind of when the end of the live chat is. So that's how long we stick around. So I imagine we probably have new people in the live chat today too. People who maybe like Fezzari or own a Fezzari. Maybe one of you guys own a Fezzari and you wanted to come in here and post a question or talk a little bit about it. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing well through all this coronavirus, COVID-19 stuff. Man, what a crazy kind of time we're living in. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing well. Hope your families are healthy and happy. Okay, let's see here. Who's in the chat? I'm just going to hop in the chat real quick. See if there's any questions there. Workhorse MTB says he has a LaSalle Peak and he loves it. Fezzari was awesome to work with. Totally custom bike. Yeah, my experience so far with Fezzari is pretty neat. I got a chance to go down. So they have a retail. It doesn't really feel like a bike shop because you're at like a warehouse, but you walk in, they have this really nice kind of showroom with their bikes all lined up. And, I think they maybe have some sales guys, maybe a sales girl or sales guy there possibly, but then they've got this huge area where they put the bikes together and box them up and ship them out to you guys. And they custom build them. Well, they custom build them a stretch. They offer you a stem of your choice, which IBIS does that too. For example, IBIS says you can pick a 55 or 40 or 35 millimeter stem. But anyway, you can pick the stem length that you want and the seat post height that you want. Again, IBIS also does that. And then the bar length that you want. So you don't have to cut down your bars. They'll just cut them for you. Most bars ship like 780 or 800. And for guys like me, I hate riding bars that are 800 mil. I can barely hang on to the bike. And so for me, I ride my bars at 750. So the bars that I rode on the Fezzaris were both 760 because that's what they had. Anyway, so they've got a little retail shop that you can go in and look at the bikes there in Utah County, here in Utah. And they've been, I don't know how long Fezzari's been around, but a long while it seems like. And just recently, in the last couple of years, have they kind of hit kind of the mainstream, credible bike world. And I'm going to pop this chat out so I can read it a little better real quick. But they've really they've started making some pretty cool bikes. And I have some friends that ride Fezzaris. And so it's been fun to kind of see their experience and they've enjoyed it. So the Delano Peak, I want to talk about one of the things I kind of mentioned a couple times in the video, which was the rear tire got hung up quite a bit on the descents. And I think part of that problem is I messed around with the suspension setting a little bit. I set up at 30% sag, which on that shock is 15 millimeters. And so that's where I set it up, and I wasn't bottoming it out in the driveway when I was really compressing as hard as I could. And I thought, well, it'd be good. And it was really soft off the top and all the way through the mid-stroke. And I thought that would probably be good, and so I rode it that way, and it kind of got hung up. Then I bumped it up for my next ride. I put like an extra, I forget, 15 PSI in it or something, and I just made it a little stiffer. That didn't feel any better. So back down to the 15 millimeters of sag, so 30%, and I think it was good. It just got hung up a little bit. That's kind of how 4-bar Horselink style bikes are sometimes. That's how my Rocky Mountain Instinct was that way sometimes as well. But one of my main beefs, and I don't like to say these things in the actual test ride and review videos, and I actually want to talk about someone who made a comment on my YouTube video, on the LaSalle Peak YouTube video that I posted earlier today, which was, Jason, it's starting to sound like all the bikes are just kind of good, and it's just kind of like, oh, all the bikes are good. Well, that's kind of true. A lot of the bikes that I ride today are like, I ride them and I think, this is a good bike, it's not a bad bike. So to get real nitpicky, means to get personal or very specific to what I like. And so what I like specifically doesn't always translate into a good test ride and review video because, for example, I have so the two mountain bikes that I own right now is an IBIS Ripley, which is a 120 millimeter kind of trail bike, right? Cross-country-ish trail bike, in my opinion. And then I also have a Pivot Switchblade, which is 142 millimeter travel, kind of trail bike with an emphasis more like all mountain or enduro or whatever categories above trail. And And so those are the two bikes that I have. And for me, the Ibis Ripley, the reason why it's so good to me, and I've kept that bike for well over a year now, is because it's a 120 mil travel bike that's really composed downhill for a 120 mil travel bike, but it has a 140 millimeter fork, but it only weighs with pedals less than 25 pounds with a decent tire. Okay, so for me, that bike works. That makes sense. So when I get on the Delano and I'm on their like most Gucci build, like their top, one of their top tier builds, and it weighs 30 pounds at 130 millimeters of travel, it's like, man, this thing better be pretty sweet because I'm lugging around a 30-pound bike. For a 30-pound bike, my Switchblade weighs less than 30 pounds. My last year I rode Ibis Ripmo, the version 1, the blue one, and it was less than 30 pounds. It was 28 pounds. And so I kind of get critical of a bike that weighs 30 pounds that doesn't do what bikes like, you know, the Switchblade and the Hightower and the Ripley or the Ripmo do. You know, in my opinion, a 30-pound bike should have traction for days on the tires, so really meaty, good tires, which that Delano had, but it's just kind of heavy. So I don't know, I wasn't so stoked on that. So when it comes down to, like, you know, this one guy posting a comment saying, Jason, it sounds like you just like all the bikes. Well, I'm not offended by that, and I'm not going to delete his comment. In fact, I actually welcome those type of comments because I too have been concerned about my YouTube videos because I've been doing this for almost 3 years now, and you know, my videos are kind of starting to sound, you know, kind of the same because a lot of these bikes are so similar. The little things that are different, the little nuanced things that are different are not that big of a deal for most people, right? But for me, a 130 mil travel bike, I don't know, it shouldn't weigh 30 pounds on their top tier build. I think it should be like less. Anyway, I don't know what that means. I don't know, maybe mention in the comments. Maybe I'm crazy. I am a little bit of a weight weenie, I know that. But does a 30-pound bike bother you guys if you're spending, you know, $6,500 or $7,000 and it doesn't have like this amazing downhill capability? I don't know. That's a bit much for me. So I'm going to get into the chat here. I can see a lot of the comments in the chat, and I want to get to those, but I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the Delano Peak and the LaSalle Peak. The LaSalle Peak, on the other hand, if you guys watched that video today, I hope it really came through on the video. That bike was really a lot of fun. I thought it was, well, it was much more fun than I thought it would be after riding the Delano. Not that the Delano wasn't fun. It was a fun bike, but I don't know, it was just kind of missing something a little bit. And I think it was maybe the weight. It was also, the Delano that I rode made a lot of creaking sounds. It was really noisy bike. And so it was really distracting. It was hard to like feel like I was riding smooth or fast or just like connected to the bike because it was just like constantly cricking the whole time. And so, and I don't think that's something that most people are going to see on the Delano. I sent it back to Fezzari. I was going to check my text messages. I had a text message from the guy at Fezzari, and he told me that it was a problem with the headset. There was something with the headset that needed to be re-greased or it got dirty or something like that. I've never had that happen before in all the bikes I've ever owned, but then again, maybe that Delano had been out 1,000 miles or so. I don't know. It didn't look like I had 1,000 miles on it, but maybe there was something about it. And so anyway, and then my other buddies who ride Fezzaris, they have the LaSalle Peaks. Their bikes aren't noisy. They're perfectly quiet. So there's just something about that one that just wasn't clicking on all cylinders for me. And it was a little bit of a distraction, but I like the geometry of the bike though. You know, one thing I want to talk about, the steep seat tube angle on these Fezzaris. The LaSalle Peak has an incredibly steep seat tube angle, right? And part of the reason why is it's longer travel at 150 millimeters. So you sit down into the travel, you know, 15, 20 mil as you're pedaling along. So that seat angle kind of, as you sit in the travel, it kind of sits back like this and it slackens out a little bit, right? And so, you know, a Horselink 4-bar bike that doesn't have a lot of built-in pedal management into the it's a real open active suspension style, right? It can get away with a little bit steeper seat tube angle, I think, than maybe a DW Link bike or a Delta Link bike or even a VPP bike, a Santa Cruz or something. So I don't know. I think over 76 is getting to be a bit much on most bikes. But the Delano was comfortable in terms of the overall fit. The LaSalle, man, if you guys haven't ridden a Fezzari, that LaSalle Peak seat angle is really steep. And after riding it for a while, I kind of got used to it, and it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was really polarizing when you first got on it to feel like how perched, that's the word that comes to mind, is that you're just perched up on that saddle really far forward. And it's a little bizarre. It's a real polarizing geometry. And so I would imagine I'd get used to it, because by the end of the ride, I don't think I thought about it much more. But and my buddies have been riding them for a long time. So there you go. That's good water. Okay, any other questions about LaSalle Peak or the Delano Peak? There was a guy who commented that he had bad customer service. I think that's that happens from time to time. And right now, bikes being delayed and parts being held up and things like that's just welcome to the world as we know it right now. It's hard to complain, and throw shade on Fezzari about that. I mean, that's I don't know. Cut people some slack a little bit these days. It's kind of tough to run a business right now, frankly, with all that's going on in the world. So, I think generally speaking, Fezzari probably has a pretty good reputation of customer service. I think an online business like them, they're pretty good about getting bikes out the door. They've been doing this for a while, and I think they're on point as far as that's concerned. My experience with them is they've been super nice. The two people that I've met and talked to at Fezzari, just over the top nice guys, and a nice brand. And in terms of bikes direct consumer brands, I think they're incredible to work with. I think they're really nice. Okay, I'm going to quickly just hop into the chat here and see if there's any glaring questions or comments. Trenton says, with the new Ritmo, the Ibis Ritmo seat tube angle being 77 degrees and the LaSalle Peak at 78, can you really tell that big of a difference? Yeah, you really can. I rode the heck out of the new Ritmo. I had it for like a month at the beginning of the year. I rode it a lot. I rode it back to back with the Switchblade and the Rascal and a few other bikes, my Ripley, for example. And there's something about the LaSalle Peak that's very different. It feels like it's more than 78 degrees. It's really bizarre feeling when you get on it. And I noticed that the seat tube angle on the new Ritmo was more forward, but it wasn't as polarizing, nearly as polarizing. There's something else about the geometry. I'm not sure okay, so you used to be able to buy a bike kind of off of the reach numbers. Like the reach number was always the thing that I would recognize the most. What's the reach? What's the reach? What's the reach? And I don't think that's the case anymore. I honestly think they should come out with a new measuring system to measure bikes. And my buddy Zach actually brought this up to me, and I agree with him, which is they should measure from the bottom bracket, where the pedals go, right, all the way out to the bolt, the axle on the front, on the fork, on the front tire, on the front wheel. So the measurement from the axle on the front wheel to the bottom bracket, that would be a pretty consistent measurement. I mean, I'm not an engineer or anything, but I think that number would be a pretty interesting number, because, as you start making bikes, 65 degrees as opposed to 68 or 70 degrees, how bikes were 7 years ago. Now they're getting down to 65 degrees, and seat angles are going from, 70 or 71, now to like 78. It really puts those bars more forward and that saddle more forward, and just starts to get kind of wonky. And so, I just think, I'm not an engineer. I don't know the math on these things, but there's something about the LaSalle Peak that's definitely very different than the new Ritmo. So, Trent, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but there you go. All right. I haven't had a chance to ride the less expensive. Okay, that's another thing I should talk about on the Fezzaris. That Delano Peak comes with a carbon frame, SLX drivetrain, and DVO suspension for like $3,500 or $3,600. It's insane. It's such a good value for a carbon bike. I've ridden the nicer model, and I can't imagine I think SLX runs great. It's a pretty good drivetrain. So, yeah, I just think that's a pretty that in and of itself is a pretty rad price point, right? I know Propane Eugene, the propane bikes, which is much more dated geometry, which by the way, I actually prefer the dated geometry of the Eugene to that of the Delano. I just felt better. That geometry to me just felt more comfortable and a little better, and the suspension felt really good too on that bike. But yeah, they offer a bike too that's right around that $3,700 price range, right? Let's see here. Okay, are there any more questions? I'm scrolling down to the bottom of the chat here. Are there any more questions about Fezzari? If you guys don't want to talk about Fezzari anymore, I'm fine with that. We can move on. For those of you who own a Fezzari, they seem like great bikes. I'm not going to rush out and buy one right away, and it's not because I don't think they ran good or they're good bikes or anything else like that. It's just that it just didn't really speak to me when I was riding. It's a great bike. I could have that Delano probably could be my only bike, and I could spend some more time setting up the suspension if I had time to ride that bike for a month before I had to make my video, you know. But I just don't have that kind of time. I didn't have that kind of time with the bike, obviously, and I don't have that kind of time on most bikes. And so why, you know, back to there's one comment that a guy made in the comment section in my video earlier today, which really stuck with me all day, which was, he basically said, you know, you like every bike, Jason, you think they're all pretty good. And he's right. You know, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about most bikes, right? But the problem with my channel and what I do is I don't have a lot of time with these bikes. It's not like I've owned these bikes for 6 months and I've ridden them, you know, 800 miles or something, where the problems can kind of surface and start to manifest themselves, right? So, you know, the only way to do that is to buy a bike and keep it long term. So the things I can speak a lot about would be like the Ibis Ripley, for example, or an Ibis Ripmo, because I spent a ton of time on those bikes. A Rocky Mountain Instinct, I owned one of those for a long time, so I can really talk about those bikes. A Pivot Trail 429, I owned, I can tell you a lot about those bikes. But it's hard to be overly critical on a bike that you've only ridden 2 or 3 times and had for a weekend to do a video, right? So, you know, that's one of the parts of my channel where I wish it was a little different. I know that Bike Magazine and Vital MTB and whoever else, you know, the rest of the YouTube world, they get these bikes, you know, 6 weeks in advance or a month in advance or something before they have to make these videos. For example, I'm going to flip this camera around. Sorry to make you guys all sick, but right over there is an Ibis Mojo 4. And that's a bike that Ibis sent directly to me to do a video on. Well, the reason why I didn't get it until 2 months after the bike was released was because that bike was over at Bike Magazine. That specific bike was at Bike Magazine, and the marketing director at Ibis was waiting to get it back from them to send to me. So I'm pretty low on the totem pole in terms of like getting bikes to review. But hey, at least Ibis is picking up the phone and sending me bikes. That's part of the reason why I do a lot of Ibis stuff. Rocky Mountain has been pretty accessible as well. But you know, not a lot of bike brands are sending me bikes to review. And so this one I'm going to have for a month. But normally I just get a bike for 3 or 4 days to do a video on. So anyway, keep that in mind when you're watching my videos. One more thing about my video reviews are I don't really focus on all the details of the bike. Like, I don't really care if it has GX or SLX drivetrain or XTR or XX1 Access drivetrain, or if it has the nicest fork, or all that stuff can be changed. And the reality is that doesn't always make the bike feel a specific certain way. Now, okay, better brakes makes a big difference in the way the bike kind of feels. You know, you can kind of, you know, good brakes is pretty nice on a demo bike, right? That I'm reviewing. And then good suspension. But dude, most of the suspension on the bikes I'm riding these days are all pretty dang good. I'm not riding a bunch of $2,000 bikes. You know, I'm usually riding pretty nice bikes. So I don't talk a lot about the kit that comes on the bike very often, or the geometry, or the specs, the numbers, because that's all crap that you guys can get online and look up. just like I do. Just hop on the people's website and look it up. So I've never understood why reviewers go on and on about the reach numbers and the this number and that number and all these things. I usually mention the head tube angle, seat tube angle, just because it's kind of interesting. But all the other numbers, you can just look them up. Now, if a bottom bracket feels particularly low, or if a bike is suffering from pedal strikes, climbing or descending, I usually make a point to mention that. But other than that, I don't talk too much about the geometry numbers, and I just don't geek out about whether or not it has SLX brakes. I just don't talk about all that stuff because you can change that. You can usually order a different kit on your bike. Okay, I think I've belabored this topic, but so my reviews, I stick to how the bike feels, and that's why I ride these bikes on all the same trails, right? I know they're not the most gnarly trails, but they're not green trails either, and so I think it gives me a good perspective of how a bike feels in comparison. So taking a Yeti SB 150 down the same trail that I take my Ibis Ripley, I think that's useful information for me. So I can tell you guys the difference between them. And it was the same trail. I don't have to wonder if maybe the trail was more difficult or the trail was easier or something. So anyway, where was I going with this? I think my point was I don't poo-poo on all these bikes very often because I'm riding A, really good bikes, and B, there might be something that I don't love about a bike necessarily, but that doesn't mean you guys won't. A lot of people kind of gave me crap for not saying that the Yeti SB 100 that I demoed years ago, a year and a half ago, whatever, 2 years ago, was a little flexy. Well, for me, I don't mind a little bit of a flex in a bike that's 100 millimeters of travel. It's not like I'm taking on the world EWS downhill championship, on the bike. And, a little flex, add a little compliance. Now, that bike ended up being kind of a mess. They had a bunch of problems with the Switch Infinity Link on that bike. But at any rate, who knows? I didn't know that until after I bought the bike and owned it for a year or 9 months. Okay. If someone has Fezzari questions, post them. Otherwise, we're moving on. We already have moved on. And I'm going to hop into the chat and see what's going on. Also, do you guys want to see more head-to-head videos? Is that something people are interested in? Taking the Mojo 4 versus the Ripley, even though they're two different wheel sizes. Is that something people are interested to see? People sometimes send me emails or comments on Instagram or on YouTube saying, hey, should I get the XYZ 29er bike or should I get the XYZ 27.5 bike? And I always think, man, you should probably pick a wheel size first. Whittle it down to a wheel size and then maybe start looking. But maybe I don't shop the right way. I don't know. MTB Monkey says, true, modern geometry changed the reach numbers. Yeah, totally. Reach numbers are no longer reliable with all the different changes we've made. Do I think the Delano would do well in a constant up-down terrain? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's smoother bikes out there. I think my Switchblade climbs better than the Delano. I mean, it's more expensive too. You can't buy a pivot Switchblade with SLX drivetrain on it for $3,500, $3,600. It doesn't exist. You can barely buy the frame for that. But I personally would rather ride my Switchblade. It's just much better on the downhill, and by much better, to be more specific, it's just like a more poppy, lively fill. It's a real deep fill, but smooth through the whole shock, and I don't know, I like it. It just feels right to me, and it climbs, I think, better than any other kind of longer travel. 29er. Okay, let's see here. Would you change anything about your current Rascal setup? Eric Park says. Well, I don't own a Revel Rascal anymore. The Revel Rascal was short-lived. That was like a 3-4 month thing, and then I moved on to the Pivot Switchblade, which I was always intending to go to the Switchblade anyway. But the Rascal was too cool not to own. I had been demoing it from Salt Cycles all the time. I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I want to know what this bike feels like with a 150 millimeter fork, and I kind of want to own this bike and ride it every day. So Yeah, I bought the Rascal and I had it for 3 or 4 months. But so my current setup on it is that I don't own it anymore. So sorry. Let's see here. Yeah, sorry, Eric Parker. It sounds like you had a couple questions about my Rascal. Sorry, man. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll be more up to date on what bikes I own, what bikes I'm riding and demoing. Yeah, so do that. Okay, dropping in says, I just bought a LaSalle Peak, but I won't get it until mid-end of September. That Delano looks legit, and it makes me rethink things. Yeah, I personally would take the Delano over the LaSalle. The LaSalle suspension was so buttery smooth, and it's just a way smoother bike than the Delano. But part of that is because that's my buddy Tyler's bike. He has dialed in the suspension. You're messing with your suspension after 5, 6, 7 rides, and so for me to get a bike set up in 2, 3 rides, it's tough to always get it perfect, especially on a bike like the Delano, where I really believe that the sag settings and the rebound settings are critical on that bike. Take a bike like the Rebel Rascal, dude, literally Ryan, hey, look at me, buddy. That kid right there, that 7-year-old right there, that 7-year-old could set up a Rebel Rascal. It doesn't matter. The Rebel Rascal, it doesn't matter what your sags at. It just feels good all the time. It's unbelievable. It's easy to set up. So the Rascal feels good right from the start. I think that the Delano takes some more time and attention. So my buddy Tyler's LaSalle was set up really good. That's what made it so smooth. So if I was deciding between the LaSalle and the Delano today, Delano. I'd take the Delano. If I was going to buy a new bike today, I wouldn't buy either one, personally. But I also look, there's more to a bike than just the way it rides, because a lot of bikes ride good. The Pivot Switchblade and the Rebel Rascal both ride good. The new Ibis Ritmo, incredible. But I never bought the Ritmo. And part of the reason why is because I owned the Ritmo last year. I wanted something different. That's why when people say, oh my gosh, you bought the Rascal, or oh my gosh, Jason's on the Switchblade, does that mean it's better than the Ritmo? Or the Delano for that matter? I mean, not necessarily, I guess is my point. Sometimes I just want to ride a certain bike. And sometimes there's really good bikes out there, and it might sound crazy to you, but it might come down to the brand. Maybe you identify with a certain brand. I know people, it seems like evil riders, people who ride evil bikes, they really identify with that brand. Some people really love Santa Cruz because it's like the big, awesome, cool bike. Around here in my town, everyone rides Specialized. For some reason, Specialized is like the cat's pajamas around here. So, I just think, for me, the Rebel Rascal had a lot of draw and a lot of appeal because A, it rode as good as any bike I've ever ridden, and it's different. Not a lot of people ride Rascals in my area, so I'm out on the trail. I don't see 6 or 7 of my bikes out on the trail. If you ride a LaSalle Peak in my area, you're going to see someone on a LaSalle Peak every time you ride. So for me, I don't really like that. I don't love that. I kind of like to have my own bike, The Switchblade, the Switchblade climbs so good. It descends well. It's the right type of bike for me. I need a bike that can do what a Switchblade does. And I love the green color. So is it bad to buy a bike because you like a green color? I don't think so. I think that's a great reason to buy a bike. As long as you're getting a bike that fits you well and suits your needs, it's made for the type of trails that you ride most of the time, then I think you're on the right track. And then I also like to, support the people that support me. So I like to buy bikes from Salt Cycles. Salt Cycles does a ton for me when other people haven't. And they're just good guys too over there. So for me, I like to buy a bike that Salt Cycles sells. So it doesn't mean I won't ever ride a Stump Jumper again, or a High Tower, or an Evil Offering or something. In fact, I love the Evil Offering. The Evil Offering is incredible, but I'm like losing my voice here. Sorry. Okay, let's talk about real quick, and then we'll get back to talking about stuff. If you guys have never tried Coco Joy, I feel dumb plugging it all the time now because they send it to me for free. But I've been drinking this way before they ever sent it to me for free, and I drink it after my rides. Sometimes I drink it during my rides too, but always after my rides. It's so refreshing. The nice thing I like about it is no sugar, no preservatives, no additives, not a bunch of chemically crap. So anyway, I have a promo code for this to get a discount on. If you guys want to try it, it's like 15% off and free shipping using the promo code Yum Yum. And then the next thing, I don't have it sitting right here, is my hip pack that I wear. If you've never seen the hip pack that I wear, which is impossible because I wear it on every ride and I talk about it all the time, like a total, salesman. But the reality is they give us a 25% discount right now. I think that that's going away. I don't think they're going to keep offering us the 25% discount much longer. It'll still be a discount, but I think they're going to lower it to like 15% or 20%. So he kind of told me, hey, I just got another shipment in, another crate of these things in, of these hip packs. So, let people know about it because the 25% might be going away. So again, promo code Yum Yum, and there's a link below every video I have to both of those. And then the last one is trail truffles. Those little, I don't know what they are, like little granola bar type looking things. They're not granola. They're like little trail snacks. They're delicious. There's links below every video to those as well. I don't get any money from Trail Truffles or Cocoa Joy or whatever, but they send me free product, and that's kind of cool. No one else is sending me free stuff. So anyway, thank you for supporting me. Tons of people told me they bought the hip pack, and that thanks for supporting me. I appreciate that. Also, if you buy a bike from Salt Cycles, that's a huge support for me too, because they give me discounts on bikes. They give me discounts on my gear and stuff that I use. And that's been a huge help for me in this channel. I don't have a Patreon account where people pay money to watch my footage. I put the ads in there, but you'd be surprised at how little YouTubers make from actual YouTube. So Salt Cycles has been a huge, I guess they're a sponsor of mine. They help me out, right? And not only that, if you're going to buy a bike that they sell, Ibis, Pivot, Yeti, Transition, Cannondale, man, I promise you, those guys will take such good care of you and help you build a custom bike. Some bike shops you walk into, you say, I want to buy this build, and they say, you want to buy a high tower. Okay, great. Which build? I want to buy the S build that comes with GX or whatever. But it'd be really nice if I could upgrade the brakes, or I wouldn't mind having the GX mechanical stuff, but I wouldn't mind an XO1 clicker because it just feels a little bit nicer. Is that cool if we do something like that? Well, Salt Cycles is all about that stuff. They'll build it up. They'll put different hubs on, different wheels, different tires, different saddle, throw on a different bar. Hey, I want a carbon bar on this one. Okay, they're not gonna just charge you for a new carbon bar. They'll let you swap out parts. They're really good about this stuff. I've had a number of people now reach out to me and send me emails or messages on Instagram and say, hey, I called Chris at Salt Cycles. He took such good care of me, got me a great deal, and shipped my bike to me. I've been so stoked on it, and I just want to say thank you. So enough people have told me what a good experience they've had now that I just feel it's incumbent upon me to tell other people, hey, if you want a good bike shop, because a lot of bike shops you walk into and they got it on their forehead, it just says, what are you doing here? Get the heck out of here. I just think some bike shops, I've been planning to make a video called the Bike Shop Stare Down. And I've walked into bike shops before, and they just stare at you and they look you up and down. They're trying to see if you belong or something. It's like the dumbest thing, like you have to belong to the shaved legs club or something. Anyway, there's some bike shops that are not real impressive to me, but Salt Cycles is incredible. They treat everyone like a friend, and they've got good inventory. They're also, I think, the second largest Pivot dealer in the country, and I think the second largest Ibis dealer in the country, possibly. And so they get a lot of inventory, so that they'll likely have the bike that you're looking for. So anyway, consider calling Chris at Salt Cycles, 801-943-8502. I'll link it below this video. Anyway, they're awesome. Okay, now I've just been rambling this whole time. I'm sorry, guys. Let's hop into the chat again and see what's going on. Okay, someone just gave us a $10 super chat. Thank you. It says, with the Ritmo being benchmarked at 100%, where is Jeff C., Lost Sal Peak, Sentinel, and the offering? Thanks. Okay, yeah. would the Ritmo be benchmarked at 100%? I mean, I think he's saying like if the Ritmo is a 10 out of 10 or 100%, where do these other bikes fall in line? Well, you're asking a question that a lot of people have asked me, which is why don't you make a scale like a 1 out of 10 climbing, 1 out of 10 descending, 1 out of 10 aesthetics, 1 out of 10 this, that, all these things. I just don't have the time to do all that. But I will answer this question. The Jeffsy for me, I don't know, man. That bike that I rode was also super noisy. Man, noisy bikes just distract you from riding. It's the most frustrating thing. So that was one thing that kind of distracted from it. But the Jeffsy for me, I would probably take even a LaSalle Peak over the Jeffsy personally. Although that steep seat tube angle is just a bit much. I've never ridden the Sentinel, so I don't know. And then the Offering is probably one of the most fun bikes I've ever ridden. I love the Offering. It's like so playful. It doesn't even feel like a 29-inch wheel, and it doesn't feel like too long of a bike. I don't know what the wheelbase is on it, but it doesn't feel like a long bike when you ride it. But the Offering is one of the most playful, kind of longer, mid-travel, long travel 29ers I've ever ridden. And the Ritmo's right there behind it, I would say, in terms of playfulness and fun factor. Man, the Offering's so much fun. The problem with the Offering, that bike just doesn't climb all that great. It's not terrible, but I even thought the Santa Cruz Hightower climbed better than the Offering. And I didn't think the Santa Cruz Hightower climbed that well. So for me, I need a bike that climbs pretty well. So, you know, I would say an Offering, because of the climbing, is probably a 70% out of 100%. The Jeffsy is a 60% out of 100%. The LaSalle is a 65% out of 100%. The Offering would be 100% if it just climbed better, but that's why it gets to 70. The Pivot Switchblade, I say, is 100% out of 100%. The Delano, even though I think it could, you know, something needs to be adjusted a little bit when I was descending. I don't know what it was. Maybe I had the rebound. I didn't have the rebound set wrong. The Delano I'd give a 70 or a 75. But here's the thing. None of them are 50s. You know, none of them are dogs. They're all pretty good bikes. The other thing I like about the Ritmo is the Ritmo builds up at like 28, 29 pounds with good tires. I like that. Some of these other bikes are, you know, I don't like riding 31-pound bikes personally. So anyway, good question. And thanks for the $10 super chat. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Yang says, I agree. I like a bike that's different from everybody else's in my area. Went to a local bike park in Minnesota. I counted 8 Ritmo AFs. Man, there's a lot of Ritmo AFs out on the trail, aren't there? That's a good value bike too. For guys who just want to hammer descents. That's a good value. I think you're like under $4,000 for a pretty nice bike. It's probably kind of heavy, but I haven't ridden one yet. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Michael Glidewell said we're going to talk about tires. That's right. Let's talk about tires. Okay. I was going to talk about this on Instagram today, but I didn't get a chance because it was going to take too long. My Cocoa Joy's almost gone too. And my kids are in the backyard jumping on the tramp, so I'm going to go play with them here in a minute before it gets dark. Tires. I get asked more about tires than probably anything else. Probably, how do I like my Ibis Ripley, and tires are the questions and comments I get the very most, right? So on my Ripley right now, and we've talked about this in other live chats, so if you've been in live chats before, I don't want to belabor the topic, but we're going to talk about it again. So my Ibis Ripley right now has a Recon 2.4 front tire and a 2.35 Ardent Race rear tire. And I'm always swapping tires. Okay, so number one thing about tires is, like, I would just find tires and try them out. Sorry, guys, I'm just going to unplug this for just a minute. Uh-oh, one of the kids is crying. Okay, so here's my Ibis Ripley. This is what the Recon looks like. It's kind of a lower traction, high-speed tire. The Ardent Race in the rear, but I've got a whole stack of tires all the time sitting over here, right? And here's my, on the Pivot, I'm running I just switched to a dissector on the rear and then the DHF on the front. Okay, so those are more burly tires, right? Okay, I just made everybody super sick just now. I'm sorry. But good night, sis. Oh, my 4-year-old's crying. Doesn't sound like she's ready to go to bed. So I switched to, I had Schwabe Magic Mirror on the front of my pivot switchblade and a Hans Dampf rear tire. After 6 or 7 rides on my switchblade, it just wasn't working. Traction wasn't nearly as good as the Maxxis's, in my opinion, for my trail conditions. And I got a hole in my Magic Mary front tire, which I've never gotten a hole in the front of a DHF or an Assegai front tire or a DHR2. I've beat up my rear tires before, but I've never had one on my front tire that the stands wouldn't seal up. It was just spraying stands everywhere, so I had to plug it with a stands dart. But anyway, I don't like to deal with that kind of crap on the trail. So back to tires that I know and trust. DHF on the front, Dissector on the rear. Those are go, hammer all day, downhill, good protection, tons of traction, kind of slow rolling, unfortunately, but that bike's kind of made to go party on and get sideways with a little bit and find traction. And yeah, I need good protection. Now, the tires I have on my Ripley there, those are faster rolling. They're not cross-country race tires that are like super flimsy, but they're lightweight, they're fast rolling. They have a little bit less traction, quite a bit less traction, especially braking traction on that rear tire is not quite as good. But they're great for the everyday trails that I ride here in Corner Canyon right behind my house, right? Now, I hate to say this, but if I could only own one bike, I couldn't do either one of these setups, I don't think. Or if I did own one bike, I'd have to have 2 wheel setups. But if I was going to commit to one setup, it'd have to be something like a Dissector or DHR. I don't know what I'd do. I couldn't own one bike. This is too hard to answer. That's the other question I get a lot. If I could only own one bike, what would it be? I've got my Ibis Ripley bumped up to 140 millimeters now in the front and on the fork. And it comes stock with 130 millimeters, right? And I thought that might give me enough of an edge that could maybe be my only bike, but it just couldn't. That DPS shock gets too hot on really long, sustained, rough descents. It just overheats and just, I don't know. I just don't know if the Ripley for me could be my only bike. So if I could only own one bike, it'd have to be something like a Ritmo or a, good night, kids. Okay. It'd have to be a Ritmo or a Rascal or if you like Yeti, like a Yeti SB130 lunch ride or the Delano from Fezzari or the pivot switchblade, a Tallboy maybe actually. I wonder if a Tallboy could be my only bike. That's interesting because that thing feels really deep on the descents, but it's still a pretty short travel. But I don't know, maybe that. In any case, I'd need to have 2 different wheel sets with different tires on there. A fast rolling cross country tire, something that I could go do 40, 50 miles on it if I wanted to, which I don't do a ton, but I do sometimes. But even the other problem is riding 4 or 5 days a week, 6 days a week, some weeks. Pushing Assegai's or DHF tires or Dissector on the rear tires, pushing those 6 days in a row, oh man, it just wears you out and it makes you feel like, oh man, I need a couple days off, because there's so much work to pedal all the time. So it's nice to hop on my Ripley with a set of fast tires. I just get out there and I feel fresh and I feel fast and I can go tackle a 22, 24 mile ride and just really go see some terrain and some country out there and really have a fun zippy day. So for me, I gotta have 2 sets of tires. Anyway, I'm gonna hop in the chat here and see what you guys are saying about tires. Okay. Let's see here. Maxxis Griffin. I've ridden the Maxxis Griffin before. I didn't love it. It had a really wonky, I rode it on the rear and it was really wonky. Oh, they stopped making it. I didn't even know they stopped making it. Okay, Chad Clark says, why the Dissector over the Aggressor on the rear? I've ridden the Aggressor on the rear a lot. In fact, I rode the Aggressor on the rear of my Rascal. And I don't know, sometimes the Aggressor feels kind of slow to me. It feels slower than a DHR2 sometimes. And I don't know. I've never ridden the dissector on the rear until just now. I just put it on this switchblade just like yesterday or the day before. I haven't even ridden it yet. I've been riding the Ibis lately. So my next ride will probably be tomorrow morning, and I'll see how that dissector goes on the rear. I've ridden the dissector on the front of my Ripley a ton. I probably have 400 or 500 miles with the dissector 2.4 on the front of my Ripley and the Recon 2.4 on the back of my Ripley. This is the beautiful things about tires, guys. For 50 or 60 bucks, you can go buy a tire, run it for a week or two, and you spent the same amount that most people spend on green fees for golfing. Like, tires are such a cheap way to totally transform your bike. I mean, if I go and put an Assegai on the front of my Ibis Ripley and a DHR2 on the back, boom, it's a completely different bike than what I'm running right now with the Recon and the Ardent Race. I mean, it completely changes the manners and the characteristics of the bike. That Ripley becomes way more capable, I'm spitting everywhere here, way more capable once you put like really good tires on there. So I would imagine most people who have the Ripley as their only bike don't have as a fast rolling tire set as I have on mine, for example. We are almost done. All right, one more super chat there for $5. Have you tried the Continental Barons? How about slime prevent and repair sealant? I'm not sure about that. I haven't ridden that tire before, and slime prevent repair sealant, I'm not sure what that is. I use Stans, the Stans, whatever it is, the sealant that you pour into your tire there. That's just what I use. I don't know. All right, let's see. We are almost done, so if you have any more questions, let it rip. Oh, other bikes I'm going to be riding soon. I'm going to be riding the Mojo 4 from Ibis, obviously. I think I may have found a 5010. I think I have found a Specialized Epic, which I'm really excited to demo. The geometry in the new Epic looks pretty rad. I really need to find a transition spur to ride. And you'd think I would have ridden one of the ones at Salt Cycles, but they only got 12 of them in, and they sold all 12 of them on the first day that they got them. So he wasn't going to let me demo one, obviously. Maybe I should just buy that bike. I've heard it's really good, and just buy it and try it and see what it's like. If I don't like it, I can sell it, type of thing. That's it. It's all gone. Man, that is so good. I'm tired, guys. I need to go to bed. I got up early this morning, went for a bike ride up to Snowbird, about 4,000 vertical feet of climbing. Then I took the kids swimming. That was super tiring. That's like the most tiring thing, having 3 kids hanging on your neck while you're trying to tread water. Then we had some dinner. We went up to Snowbird and we walked around and went on a little hike and played in the river. It's been a great family day today. I'm pooped. We probably didn't talk about tires as much as I wanted to. I would just say my recommendation to you, a lot of people ask me about getting a new bike too. I would almost say, before you go buy a new bike that hasn't, everyone's different, but before you buy a new bike or try a new bike, try switching up your tires. It makes such a big difference, and it's so fun to try different tires. It really does change the way the bike feels, and play around with the PSI in your tires too. A lower PSI tire just really hooks up nice, as long as you're not blowing through the tire and hitting rims and stuff. Other things I was going to mention is I went with some buddies of mine this week and rode a little bit more gnarly trail, and it made me think about getting mountain bike coaching. A couple of my friends, they're good riders, but they don't have a lot of experience in real chunky terrain, and I'm not the greatest at it either. I mean, I got friends that blow the doors off of me, and everyone's at their own level. But if you haven't looked at a mountain bike coaching before you buy a new bike, you might consider tires and mountain bike coaching and take 4 or 5 or 6 lessons. I have one friend, Lance, probably in his late 40s or early 50s. He took 6 lessons, I think, And man, the improvements that he had in those 6, like 1 hour, 1.5 hour lessons was unbelievable. And so I think I'm going to take some mountain bike lessons this summer before the summer's over from a guy named Sam here locally here in Utah who offers mountain bike lessons. I'm probably going to do it with 3 of my friends, and the 4 of us will just split the cost of the session. I'm going to try to film it. I'm not very good at filming things other than bike video reviews because, as most of you guys know by now, for those of you who have been watching my channel for a long time, maybe been around since the beginning type of thing, I'm not a YouTuber guy. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not a filmer guy. I'm not a video production guy. Everything that you see is filmed on a crappy GoPro Hero 5 that is like super old and outdated, or on my phone that I'm looking at right now. This is just my phone. I've never bought like a vlogging camera because I don't want to spend money on this hobby because it doesn't make any money. So, yeah, I'm not like a super YouTubey guy, and so it's difficult, believe it or not. It's hard for me to film videos that are not. I've learned how to do what I'm doing right now. This really cookie cutter bike review video. I feel like I've got that down, and so I'm going to keep doing that. But when I go do trail reviews, I just get self-conscious. I don't know if I'm doing it right, and I don't know how to edit it all. I feel like I've got a pretty good system down of editing now that I can do it pretty quick and not waste too much time. But I would love to do how-to videos and just show you guys little things or film these mountain biking coaching sessions that I'm probably going to take. I'd love to film those and show you, but I don't know if I know how to film it properly. And then I go on all these rides all the time that are super fun. I mean, you guys only see 2 or 3 videos a month or 2 videos a month lately, right? But you guys got to realize I ride 5 or 6 days a week. I'm riding all the time. And so, you know, some of these other YouTubers, they're really good at filming and they're just good. They know how to do it. You know, they know how to do YouTube. Like if you go watch Eric on BCPOV, he does such a good job of like producing. I love his videos. He does such a good job. And you know, BKXC, he obviously has his thing. I feel like Eric at BCPOV really puts a ton of time and energy into that. So that's not really my jam. I just do my bike reviews and off we go. I just need to take my camera on more trail rides and just show you. It's just I worry that they're not going to turn out great, and then I got to worry about what I'm saying on the camera. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to answer these last questions on the chat here, and then we're going to bed. We're at 57 minutes, okay? Ryan Small says, the Recon quartering knobs feel squishy to me. I think they went overboard on the siping. Well, I haven't ran into that problem. I have to run a little bit higher PSI in that tire, but that's about it. Let's see here. Bike Some says go to sleep. Yeah, I'm about there. Let's see here. Which coaching group do I recommend? Casey says. I don't know of like an online coaching group, but there's 2 people here locally that I know do really good coaching. It's Sam. I don't even know his last name. Sam. Call Salt Cycles. He's a guy that they recommend. And then Jason Hawkins. Jason Hawkins is a lot more money, but he's like a legit like pro racing. Like the guy's legit. And so is Sam. Sam's incredible. But I think Jason's a little busier and charges more. But I think Sam's like $80 an hour, I want to say, for a lesson. For 4 guys, that's $20 a person. And I think he wants to do like 4 to 6 lessons, I think is kind of his schedule. So I don't know that he can teach you enough in one lesson. I think he wants to meet with you. Anyway, I think we're going to do 4 to 6 lessons. Let's see here. What does my Switchblade weigh? So my Switchblade, I threw all the money in the world at. I've never spent this much money on a bike. I don't regret it, but it's kind of embarrassing. I bought the titanium cranks, the Envy wheels, which I've never bought Envy wheels. I've always bought Salt Cycles custom carbon wheels because they're way more affordable. But hey, YOLO, right? I wanted to try the Envy wheels, so I bought the Envies. So I threw all the money possible at it to make it lightweight and still, durable. And I'm at 28 pounds, 4 ounces. That was with the Schwabe tires. I'm too I'm going to be too bummed out to weigh this thing with the new Maxxis tires on there. You know what? At the end of this, at the at the end of this live chat, for those of you who want to stick around, I will weigh. Well, we can do it right here. It's going to take a minute, but we can weigh it real quick and see what it weighs with the Maxxis tires. I know it's going to be a lot heavier than 28 pounds, 4 ounces, because those Schwalbe tires are way lighter, but we'll see. Trailblazer ATV says, everybody has Scott bikes where I ride. You know what? My buddy Doug Ovard, who's an excellent rider, rides a Scott Ransom, and his son Zach, who you've seen in a ton of my videos riding, he rides a Scott Ransom and he loves it. He says it's one of the best bikes he's ever ridden. He usually gets like 2 new bikes every year, and I would very much trust his input, and he loves the bike. So, yeah, I need to try a Scott. Okay, I'm going to just shuffle through these last ones. Thank you, he says. Oh, geez, thanks for all the compliments, guys. Casey, call Salt Cycles, Casey, and ask him for Sam's number for coaching lessons. Oh, thanks for look at all the people giving me well wishes here. Thank you guys for telling me I'm doing a good job on my YouTube channel. I appreciate that. You know, you get self-conscious putting yourself out there on all these videos, and I always worry that the bikes, I mean, they all, anyway, yeah. Yeah, Jeff Kennedy would probably give pretty good lessons. That guy can ride a bike, can't he? Okay, I think we're going to about wrap this thing up. I'm 5'8", to answer one of your questions. I'm 5'8", and I usually ride a medium bike. The LaSalle Peak that I rode was a medium, and so was the Delano. Okay, for those of you who want to stick around, I'm going to weigh my pivot switch blade. You guys might as well stick around and see what that's all about. Let me adjust this camera angle here. Oh, that's going to be the way. Let's try over here. Sorry, guys, this is probably a little different, but let's try that right there. Okay, so if you guys want to see what the pivot switch blade weighs, just stick around. Sorry, guys, I'm probably making a sick moving the thing around everywhere. All right, let's get this thing weighed. I still need to build this thing up. This is such a pretty paint job, man. I just can't believe how cool it is. I just make some of the prettiest bikes ever. Anyway, this is getting set down for a minute. And we'll get this up here. I'm going to take my pedals off first, actually. Oops. And for those of you wondering, I either ride XTR pedals, just SPDs, right? Or I ride the Canfield crampons. Not that it's that big a deal, but see how thin that is? That's why I love these pedals. They're super thin. I like them. They're good. I've been trying to commit to riding more flat pedals. And for those of you wondering, I don't keep my bikes in my garage because I don't want people stealing my bikes. And believe it or not, I've turned this little front room of mine into like a bike room. I know it's super janky. My mantle, this is literally my fireplace mantle. This is embarrassing. Like I keep all my crap up here on it. I don't know. Some of your wives might not like this. Also, I'm testing different chain lubes out right now. I'm doing the Rock and Roll Gold, the Chain Butter, And this is the stuff I've used the most. Is duh, why can't I remember? Squirt, duh. I've used that for a long time. Anyway, so when I set up a bike, I go through and I use my calipers here to set the actual millimeters. Shock pump, obviously. And then just so you guys can see, that's my Ripley. That's my wife's Ripley right there. Although I just got her a Mojo 4, it just isn't here yet. So, and for those of you guys wondering on this bike, those are my tie cranks. They're so cool looking. Oh, and I'm running an oval chainring for the first time. I've got 6 or 7 rides on it. And it feels good. It feels weird at first, but then the MV wheels. So stupid. I've spent too much money on this bike. It's like the dumbest thing ever. All right, let me get that other pedal off. We'll get this thing weighed. Sounds like the kids are already in bed, so I'm not going to go hang out with them. Plus, it's dark outside. So, bad parenting tonight, I guess. Okay. Let's get the scale here. Let's get the scale. Also, this is the new Fox dropper post. They just made an update to their Fox dropper post, their transfer dropper post, and it comes with a new lever. If you can see it there, I don't know if the camera's going to show you very well. Let me get over here so I can see what I'm looking at. Yeah, that's the new Fox dropper. It's really similar to the Wolf Tooth. I love that Wolf Tooth lever. But I didn't put it on this bike because that one's so nice. I like it a lot. Okay, let's get this up here and get it weighed. Okay, so the only thing I have on here extra is a bottle cage that weighs, I don't know, 50 grams or less. It's not going to affect the weight of the bike. All right. I'm scared to even look. Okay, I haven't looked yet. So, with my Schwabe Magic Mary up front and hands damp on the rear, it was 28 pounds, 4 ounces. Now it is, oh, it's backwards for you. I don't know if it's backwards on your computer now. It's backward on my phone. 28 pounds, 14 ounces. So 28 pounds and 3/4. Hey, that's not bad. That's not bad considering what this bike can do. I mean, it's so good on the downhills. And look, the way I should really do bike reviews, I should spend more time like pointing out like, look at this chainstay protector, man. It is so good. I mean, it just does such a good job protecting. They've got chainstay protector up the back of the rear triangle here, along the rear triangle here. They cover up the links down here so rocks and crap don't get all up in here. You just wash it out. They have a little drain hole. The drain hole is actually on this other side, isn't it? For the shock here, I mean, really good. Look at that protection on that frame, all the way up through here, down below the bottom or in front of the bottom bracket here, right? Am I showing you there? It's just these guys do. Pivot does such a good job. Just everything they do. I mean, the way their cables come out of the front here. I mean, is that the stuff I should be talking about in my reviews? I mean, I just don't know. I usually just like to talk about how the bike feels, but the cable routing, I really prefer the cable routing on this pivot like this over this Ripley. This Ripley, it comes out really high. It pokes out really high and comes up and almost like hits up on my bars, and I don't always love that. And look, not nearly the protection of the pivot versus this ibis. Anyway, I can hear my daughter up there asking me to go come and say goodnight to her. So fun being with you guys tonight. Hopefully we talked about some stuff that people cared to talk about. For all the Fezzari people who maybe came to the channel for the first time, one last thing, I'm just going to say this. I've noticed about Fezzari people is they are very loyal to their brand, which is great. You know, it seems like Evil people are that way too. Evil Bikes people are very that way too, and Yeti people also. So it's a cool brand. Fezzari's cool, and that's awesome. Hey, if you guys want to support the channel, shop from Competitive Cyclist. Hey, you're supposed to be in bed. Shop from Competitive Cyclist. Hold on just a minute. Shop from Competitive Cyclist using the links below my videos. It really helps out the channel a lot. I end up making a little bit of money that way, and it really makes it worth my time to do this, right? And then you know, if you guys like Coco Joy, they send me free stuff, so they give us a little discount. And then the Lab All-Star Hit Pack, and that's about it. So anyway, I'm going to bed. I'm tired. This girl's ready for me to go tuck her in. She's ready to go to bed. This girl's ready to go to bed.
No.
So, well, yeah, she's not going to bed yet. But anyway, time to call it a wrap. It's good being with you guys. Thanks to the guys who moderated. You guys are always so good to help out, and I really appreciate you. And yeah, that's it. Let's turn this thing off.
Good night.